When life gets tough, when the world seems out of control, how can one stay calm? Many people look for answers out there. Instant motivation, momentary entertainment, or escapism that only provide temporary peace, but Stoicism offers something different. Not a fragile and circumstantial calm, but a calm born of a deep understanding of how the world works and how we should respond to it. Imagine if you could face challenges without panic, if you could stay strong even when things don't go your way, if frustration, anger, and fear no longer controlled you. That is what Stoicism has taught for thousands of years, a philosophy that is not just theory but has been tested in real life. Roman emperors like Marcus Aurelius used it to stay sane amidst war and betrayal, a slave-like. Epictetus proved that even in extreme limitations, humans can still have true freedom. And today, these principles are still relevant even in the modern, stressful world. Anxiety and uncertainty. Stoicism may be needed more than ever in this video. We will discuss 10 lessons from Stoicism to stay calm that are not just theory, but can actually be applied in everyday life. Don't miss a single point, because at the end of this video, you might see life in a different way, calmer, stronger, wiser. Oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss in-depth discussions like this in the future. Now let's start the first point: accept what you can control. There are two things in life: things you can control and things you can't. That is a fundamental principle in Stoicism, something that Epictetus taught over 2,000 years ago. But if you think about it, how many of us really understand and apply it? Humans naturally want to control everything. We want to make sure that the world goes our way, that people treat us fairly, that the outcomes we expect happen. But the reality of life is often not like that. We spend so much energy worrying about things that are beyond our control. We are angry because someone treated us badly. We are frustrated because our plans failed. We are anxious because the future is uncertain. But just think, what is the point of all that? What changes by us complaining? Does the world suddenly become fairer? Just because we are angry, will someone treat us better? Just because we are disappointed? No, Stoicism teaches that true peace can only be achieved when we understand the limits of our control. If something is within our control, for example, how we speak, how we think, how we act, then we are fully responsible for it. But if something is beyond our control, the weather, other people's opinions, or unexpected events, then worrying about it is just a waste of energy. Imagine a sailor in the middle of a storm. He cannot control the wind or the waves, but he can control the sails and rudder. If he focuses on the storm, he will panic and lose his way. But if he focuses on the sails and the rudder, he can still sail through the storm. So is life. When something doesn't go my way, is this something I can control? If he does his best to change it, if not, let it go, then you are no longer trapped in a cycle of unnecessary anxiety. But there is something interesting. Often people who understand the limits of their control are more at peace in the face of life. They don't feel the need to force something that can't be changed. They can accept failure without feeling devastated. They can face uncertainty without feeling panicked. And more than that, they have true freedom, because people who don't depend on external things to feel at peace are truly free. That is why this principle is the foundation for all other lessons of Stoicism. If you want to stay calm in the face of life, start here. Recognize what you can control and let go of what you can't. Point 2. The power of acceptance. There are things in life that we can't avoid: failure, loss, pain. This world does not always go according to our expectations, and that is the reality we have to face. But there is something interesting when something bad happens, how we deal with it. Most people deny it. They get angry, frustrated, and blame the circumstances. They ask, why did this happen to me? They wish everything was different, but all that denial does not change the reality. Stoicism teaches something different. Do not fight the reality. Accept. It does not mean we have to surrender or give up. On the contrary, by accepting the reality, we stop wasting energy on things that cannot be but based on its own rules. If we continue to expect the world to be according to our wishes, we will only end up disappointed. But if we can accept whatever happens, good or bad, we will be calmer in facing it. You may have heard the concept of amorphy, which is often associated with Stoicism. It means love your destiny, not just accepting the situation, but really loving it. Even when facing something difficult, we can see it as part of the journey of life that shapes us. But let's think further. If we can really accept reality as it is, will we be happier? The answer is yes, because people who accept their lives are no longer trapped in the turmoil of useless emotions. They are not trapped in regret or empty hopes. They see what is in front of them, and they choose to face it with calm. When something happens, good or bad, ask, yourself, can I accept this? If the answer is yes, then you are one step closer to true calmness. The third point of the trainer. Young mindfulness. Have you ever felt like life just goes by, like you do a lot of things every day, but your mind is always somewhere else? We often get caught up in two things: worrying about the future or regretting the past. We think about the worst case scenario, wondering what will happen, or even rehashing past mistakes, and what happens? We miss the moment we are living. Stoicism teaches us to live mindfully, be fully present in every moment. Epictetus once said, never take your eyes off what is happening in front of you. That means we have to learn to focus on the present moment instead of constantly getting caught up in thoughts about things that may not happen or that are past and cannot be changed. But how can we practice mindfulness in everyday life? One way is to observe our own thoughts when negative emotions arise: anger, anxiety, or frustration. Try to pause for a moment, take a breath. Notice what is going on in your mind instead of getting lost in emotions. Try to observe them from a distance, as if you were just a spectator watching your own thoughts. By doing this, you no longer react impulsively. You can choose how to respond. There are also simple techniques taught by the Stoics, mindfulness exercises in everyday activities. For example, when you eat, focus on the taste of your food. When walking, pay attention to your footsteps. When talking to someone, listen to them fully without rushing to think about what you are going to say next. It sounds simple, but this is what we often forget in a world full of distractions. We are easily dragged into bad news notifications and thoughts that are constantly spinning in our heads. But people who live with full awareness have something that many people don't have: calmness, because they are no longer caught up in a whirlwind of useless thoughts. They are here in the moment, enjoying what they are going through. So every time your mind starts to wander, ask yourself, I really here right now? If not, come back to feel your breath, pay attention to your surroundings, and enjoy the calm that comes when you truly live in the moment. Point to grow resilience. Resilience is not only about how strong you survive in difficult situations, but also about how you bounce back after experiencing failure or hardship. In Stoicism, resilience is one of the main pillars to achieve peace of mind. Life will never be free from challenges. There will always be something that disrupts our plans, disappoints us, or even brings us down. But the question is not about how to avoid problems, but how we respond to them. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Whatever gets in the way becomes the way itself." This means that obstacles are not something we should complain about, but rather something we can use to grow. Imagine someone who is facing a major failure in his life. Maybe he loses his job, experiences a failure in a relationship, or faces serious financial challenges. Ordinary people may feel devastated and lost, but someone who has resilience sees failure as part of the journey, not as the end of everything. Then how can we build resilience like this? First, change your perspective on problems. Instead of seeing them as something devastating, see them as an opportunity to learn what you can learn from this situation, how this can make you stronger. In Stoicism, there is a concept called amorphy. Loving fate means not just considering what happens, but really accepting it wholeheartedly, because every event in life is part of your journey, secondhand. Stoics often face discomfort, mental exercises to face difficulties even before they actually happen. For example, they imagine losing things they have, not to scare themselves, but to remind themselves that all of it can be lost at any time, so they don't get too attached to it, or they intentionally live their days with simplicity, eat simple food, sleep in uncomfortable places, so they are not afraid of losing luxury. Why is this important? Because the more often you face discomfort, the less likely it is to destroy you when it does happen. Third, keep your mind strong. Resilience is not just physical, but also mental. And one of the best ways to keep your mind strong is to choose how we talk to ourselves when faced with challenges. Do you say, I will never be able to overcome it? Or do you say, this is hard, but I will find a way to deal with it? What you tell yourself will greatly affect how you act. So from now on, stop complaining about difficulties. See it as training, as something that will help you grow stronger. As Seneca said, difficulties strengthen the mind just as hard work strengthens the body. And in the end, it is not the world that determines how strong you are, but how you choose to respond to the world. Point 5. Choose how you respond in life. We can't control everything that happens, but we can always choose how we respond to it. This is the essence of Stoicism. It's not about changing the world to suit our wishes, but about changing the way we react to the world. Epictetus said, it's not the events that bother us, but the way we perceive them. Imagine someone who is facing an insult or harsh criticism from another person. Most people will react emotionally, feel angry, hurt, or even retaliate with even more anger. But a Stoic will pause and ask themselves, Do I really need to be angry? Are their words true? Will this emotional reaction help? Often we react automatically without really thinking. We let our emotions take over. When we have the choice to respond in a more thoughtful way, how can we be better at controlling our responses? First, pause before reacting. When you are facing a stressful situation, do not react immediately. Take a deep breath, count to 10. Give yourself some space to think before you act. The human brain has two main systems in decision-making: the fast emotional system and the slow, more rational system. If we react immediately, we often use the fast and impulsive system, but if we give ourselves a break, we can activate the more rational part of the brain and make better decisions. Secondly, ask yourself, is this important? Many of the things that trigger our emotions are not really as important as we think. If someone cuts you off on the street, is it really something worth getting upset about all day? If someone makes a negative comment about you, is it really worth thinking about it constantly? In most cases, these things will not matter in the long run, so why let them ruin our day? As once said, we suffer more in our imagination than in reality. We often exaggerate, make a big deal out of a small problem. If we can remember that most problems are not as important as we think, we can learn to respond more calmly. Third, focus on helpful actions. If something happens, ask yourself, what can I do to make this situation better? Instead of getting caught up in anger or worry, use your energy to do something productive. For example, if someone criticizes your work, instead of getting offended, ask if there is anything you can learn from this. If there is, fix it. If not, ignore it. A Stoic doesn't waste time complaining or getting offended. They focus on what they can control and act on it. Fourth, don't let others control your emotions. Often we give others too much power over how we feel. If someone treats us badly, we feel sad. If someone compliments us, we feel happy. But this means we are giving control of our emotions to others. You can't control how others act, but you can control how you react. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your own mind, not over external events. Realize this and you will find strength." If someone is rude to you, you can choose not to be offended. If someone tries to provoke you, you can choose to remain calm. It is not about being cold or indifferent. It is about not giving others the power to determine your happiness. And ultimately it is about being the master of yourself, because there is nothing more powerful than someone who cannot be controlled by the outside world. Point 6, limit excessive desires. Living in the modern world makes us constantly surrounded by temptations, from social media that shows other people's lives that seem perfect to advertisements that convince us that happiness can be bought unconsciously. We start to want more money, more recognition, more comfort. But behind all that, there is one reality that we often ignore. Uncontrolled desires actually make us more restless. First, excessive desires are the source of suffering. Epictetus said, "You will never be free until you stop depending on things beyond your control." When we want something too much, whether it's money, status, or validation from others, we surrender our happiness to things beyond our control. Imagine someone who really wants to be respected by others. Every negative comment or criticism will hurt his self-esteem. Every failure will feel like the end of the world, all because he depends his happiness on something he can't fully control. Second, excessive desires are never truly fulfilled. Have you ever achieved something you really wanted only to feel empty afterwards? This is the trap of excessive desires. Every time we get what we want, we immediately look for something bigger. People who want money will always feel lacking even when they are rich. People who want recognition will always feel underappreciated even when he is already famous. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that people who live with unlimited desires will never be satisfied. The more we pursue something with excessive passion, the more we feel lacking. Third, limit desires and you will find peace. Stoicism does not teach us to have no ambition, but to limit unnecessary desires. Try to ask yourself, do I really need this? Will this make me better as a human being, or is this just something I want to pursue because others want it too? When we learn to limit our desires, we will realize that many things we pursue are actually not essential. As many say, rich people are not those who have a lot, but those who need a little. True peace does not come from having everything, but from realizing that we do not need everything to feel enough. Fourth, practice simplicity to train self-resilience. People who are used to living in luxury will feel restless when something is taken away from him, but people who are used to living simply will not be easily shaken by change. This is one of the exercises done by the Stoic philosophers. They deliberately live a simpler life than they can afford, not because they cannot enjoy comfort, but to train themselves not to depend on those things. Try to live a day without something that you usually consider important. It could be without social media without expensive food or without excessive entertainment. Feel how life goes on without those things in this way. We build resilience to change, and we are no longer afraid of losing something that is actually not essential. The fifth true freedom comes from controlling desire. Think about this: who is freer, people who always want more and feel anxious if they don't get it, or people who feel satisfied with what they have? Most people think that freedom means being able to get anything we want, but in Stoicism, true freedom is freedom from desire that control us. When we are no longer controlled by the lust for status, wealth, or recognition, we will no longer be easily shaken by the outside world. We can enjoy life more calmly because we know that happiness does not depend on external things but on how we see the world. Marcus Aurelius said, "True wealth is having few needs, and in the less we want, the more peaceful we feel." The seventh point is to be a person of integrity when the world is full of confusion, uncertainty, and various social pressures. There is one thing that you can always hold on to: integrity is not just about being honest or doing the right thing when someone sees. True integrity is about maintaining the principles and values that you hold even though no one is watching. In Stoicism, maintaining integrity means living according to the virtues of virtue, which consist of four main pillars of wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. When you have integrity, you are not easily shaken by external pressures. You will not be tempted to sacrifice principles just for the sake of misguided gain or to please others. But let's think more deeply why many people have difficulty maintaining integrity. There are many factors of social pressure, material temptations, fear of losing something valuable. All of that can shake someone. There are even people who feel that integrity is a weakness in a cruel world. But on the contrary, integrity is the strength of a Stoic. Understands that self-esteem is not determined by the judgment of others, but by the actions and decisions taken every day. Others can take your wealth, your reputation, even your position in society, but they can't take your integrity unless you yourself give it up. Why integrity brings peace? When you live with integrity, you don't need to be afraid. You don't need to worry about what others say, because you know that your decisions are rooted in something true and solid. Try to imagine two people. The first person always sacrifices his principles for momentary gain. He must lying, manipulating, and constantly worrying that one day the truth will be revealed. The second person lives by clear principles. He makes decisions based on virtue, even though it is not always profitable in the short term. But he is never afraid because he knows that what he is doing is right. Who is calmer? When you have integrity, life feels lighter. There is no fear of lies being exposed. There is no guilt for betraying your own values. You walk with your head held high, not because of arrogance, but because you know that you have done your best according to the principles you believe in. How to apply this in everyday life? First, identify the principles that are most important to you. What are the non-negotiable values in your life? What are the boundaries that you will not cross, no matter how much pressure is given? Second, make decisions based on principles, not momentary emotions. Do not let emotions such as fear, anger, or greed control you. A Stoic always considers whether the decision taken in line with virtue or just an impulsive reaction. Third, be prepared to face the consequences. Maintaining integrity is not always easy. There will be times when you have to lose something in order to maintain principles, but remember, self-esteem is more valuable than last momentary gain. Realize that not everyone will understand your choice. There will be people who think you are stubborn, naive, or too idealistic. It is not your problem. Your job is not to please everyone, but to stay true to the values you hold. So are you willing to be a person of integrity, or do you prefer to sacrifice principles for comfort? While the choice is in your hands, point keel. Understand that everything is temporary. In life, nothing is truly eternal. Everything has a beginning and an end, including happiness, sadness, success, even suffering. This is one of the fundamental concepts in Stoicism that can help you stay calm in the face of whatever happens. Think about how many times in your life you feel something will last forever but eventually changes. Happiness that once felt irreplaceable slowly fades away. Pain that feels like it will never and suddenly passes away. People you thought would always be there eventually leave. Everything moves, changes, and eventually ends. Why is this understanding important? Because much of our suffering comes from over-attachment to something that is temporary. When we hang our happiness on things that are not eternal, we are building an illusion that will eventually collapse. We often see people who feel devastated when they lose wealth, positions, or relationships that they thought would last forever, when if they had understood from the start that nothing is truly permanent, they would have been better prepared for change. A Stoic is not afraid of loss because from the start, he never held on to anything too tightly. He enjoys the moment, when something is still there but does not become emotionally attached when good things. And when we are in good times, we often forget that they will. Not enough. As a result, they keep chasing something new, hoping it will bring happiness. But the problem is, when they get it, the satisfaction only lasts for a short time before new desires arise. They are trapped in an endless race. Gratitude breaks this cycle. When we start to appreciate what we have, we stop looking for happiness outside ourselves. We find peace in the abundance that already exists, not in chasing something that is uncertain. Secondly, gratitude changes perspective on the difficulties in life. There are bound to be things that do not go our way, but what if we change the way we see them? A Stoic is not only grateful for the good things, but also for the challenges that come into their life. For them, every difficulty is an opportunity to grow. Imagine someone who loses their job. Naturally, they may feel disappointed and angry, but a Stoic would ask, what can I learn from this? Maybe this is an opportunity to find a more suitable career path. Maybe this is the time to develop new skills. Maybe this is a test to train resilience and self-control. With this perspective, life no longer feels like a series of bad things that happen to us, but as a journey full of lessons that we can benefit from. Third, gratitude makes us happier in a simple way. Have you ever noticed that people who are often grateful tend to be happier than those who constantly complain, not because they have an easier life, but because they choose to focus on what they have, not on what they lack? When we start to be grateful for the little things, the air we breathe, a healthy body, the food we have available, life feels richer and more meaningful. We realize that we already have so much to be grateful for. How to apply gratitude in everyday life? First, make a habit of appreciating the simple things every day. Take a moment to realize how many good things there are in your life. This could be your health, good relationships, or even just the sun is shining brightly. Second, change the way you think about difficulties. Instead of seeing problems as burdens, consider them as opportunities to grow. Ask yourself, what lessons can I learn from this? Do not compare your life with others. Many people lose their happiness, not because their life is bad, but because they are too busy looking at other people's lives, when true happiness comes from appreciating what we have, not from comparing it to others. Try to train yourself to remember that everything can be taken away at any time. Imagine if the things you take for granted, such as walking, seeing, hearing, suddenly disappear. How would you feel? A Stoic does not wait for loss to start being grateful. They realize that every moment is a loan that can one day be taken back, and therefore they choose to fully appreciate everything they have now. So, are you ready to be truly grateful for your life, or do you still want to chase something that has not? Of course it will make you happier. The choice is in your hands. Point 10. Keep learning and growing. Calm does not come from certainty. It comes from being prepared to face uncertainty. Life is constantly changing. The world is constantly moving, and every day brings new challenges. If you want to stay calm in all situations, you must equip yourself with knowledge and wisdom. A Stoic does not see learning as something that stops after school is over. They see it as a lifelong obligation. Marcus Aurelius in Meditations often wrote about how he learned from the people around him. He never felt he knew enough. He kept asking questions, kept analyzing, and kept seeking deeper understanding. Why is this important? Because when you keep learning, you are more prepared to face the world. You don't panic easily when circumstances change, because you are used to facing new things with a cool head. Why learning helps calm first. Knowledge reduces fear. Many people feel anxious not because the situation is bad, but because they don't know what to do. Ignorance is the main source of fear. When you keep learning, you start to understand how the world works. You no longer see challenges as threats, but as puzzles that can be solved. For example, if you lose your job, you can feel panic and hopeless, but if you are used to learning and developing new skills, you know that this is not the end. It is just a change, and you have the ability to adapt. Secondly, learning increases self-confidence. When you understand something well, you are not easily shaken by outside opinions or pressure. Many people feel stressed because they feel incompetent or not good enough, but imagine if you knew that you had strong skills and understanding in a certain area. Would you be easily affected by criticism or pressure? People who keep learning know that they can rely on themselves. They know that if there is something they do not understand, they can learn it. Thirdly, the world is constantly changing, and learning is the best way to stay relevant. If you stop learning, you will be left behind. The world waits for no one. A Stoic understood that life is a never-ending journey. You will never reach a point where you can say, "I know everything." Therefore, they kept reading, observing, and seeking new insights. They knew that the more they learned, the more they would understand how much they didn't know. How to apply this principle in life. First, make a habit of reading and seeking new insights. Every day, you don't have to wait for a long free time. Even 10 to 15 minutes of reading something useful can make a big difference in the way you think. It could be a book, philosophy, psychology, history, or even an article that adds to your understanding of the world. Second, learn from experience, not just from theory. Many people read a lot of things but never really apply them. A Stoic not only read about mental toughness but also practice it in their daily lives. They use adversity as opportunity to learn. If you face a problem at work, don't just complain. Try to ask, what can I learn from this situation? Third, practice critical thinking and question everything. Don't just accept information. Try to ask, is this true? Is there another point of view? How does this apply to my life? A Stoic doesn't easily believe opinions or trends. They always seek the truth by thinking deeply and rationally. Fourth, surround yourself with people who can teach you something. If you want to grow, you have to be in an environment that supports learning. Hang out with people who are wiser than you, discuss with them, and be open to new perspectives. Sometimes one meaningful conversation can change your outlook on life. Conclusion: the journey of a lifetime. Learning is not just about gaining knowledge, but also about building character. Every day is an opportunity to be a little better than yesterday. Don't be satisfied with the understanding that shallow. Don't stop growing just because you feel enough. Because in the end, true peace comes not from avoiding change, but from being ready to face it with an open mind and a calm heart. So are you ready to keep learning and growing? Or will you stop where you are letting the world change without you? The choice is in your hands. Those are 10 lessons from Stoicism to stay calm in life. If you have watched up to this point, it means you really care about your own growth. And that is the first step towards true peace. Thank you for watching until the end. If you find this video useful, don't forget to like, comments, and subscribe so you don't miss other content. See you in the next discussion. Stay calm, stay wise. I remind you to listen and live all the messages I convey, whether on your cell phone, on your laptop, or the like. Thank you for listening. I hope you can share this with others.